Okay, so this is the following of the talk of this morning. So this morning we prove the rationality of the periodic theta function, and then and before we explain things around resolution of singularity. So now the goal is to explain you the motivic setting, and just to compare the proof, and in fact the notions of compactness used in the proof. And after I will explain another approach by Denef to prove the rationality of the periodic zeta functions using cell decompositions and quantifier elimination theorem. Okay, so let F complex polynomial. So the motivic Poincare series is defined as a sum for L larger than 1 of the class of polynomials of degree utmost n minus 1 power d, such that when you evaluate f on xt, this is equal to 0 modulo tn t to dn. So this is a formal series in the Grothendieck ring of algebraic variety, and you can observe that this is an algebraic variety because here you have finitely many coefficients, and you have one equation which is here. So this is an algebraic variety, and you take the class in the Grothendieck ring of algebraic variety, and you take the formal series, and then as this morning, we can translate this formal series as an integral over, as a motivic integral. So we introduce a motivic zeta function as integral of the formal series power d of the function L to d minus s order of f. Okay, so this can be written as the sum for n positive of the motivic measure of the vector of formal series, such that you have the order of f equal to n L power minus Sn. So this should be considered as an arc, a formal arc. So from now I will only say formal arc which is in the file space over C, and as before, as in the periodic case. So the proof is completely similar. You have the relation. So the Poincare series evaluated in L power minus S minus D is equal to L minus S 1 L minus S 1 minus the motivic zeta functions. Okay, so if you want to prove the rationality of this, it's enough to prove the rationality of this motivic zeta function. And more generally, or maybe with other notation. Instead of using this Helm power minus Sn, we will write simply ZFT is the sum of the measure of the set of arcs such that the order of f of x is equal to n, t to the n, and it's positive. So it was at the beginning introduced by Denef and Noether. And now we will prove, we are going to prove the rationality of this zeta function. Okay. Okay, so the proof is given using a resolution of singularity. So let H an embedded resolution. So I recall you that H is proper. So I will explain during the talk what I mean by that. And in particular, H is an isomorphism between Y minus the exceptional divisor to AD minus the zero set of F. So, in particular, I can explain now. H induces a bijection between, so the set of arcs on Y minus the set of arcs on the exceptional divisor and the set of arcs on the affine space minus the set of arcs on F equals 0. So I denote here, so right here for the notation. So if you take X an algebraic variety over C, then L of X is a scheme of arcs of X, and simply for us, it's enough to know that the C rational point of that schemes are simply the CT rational point of X. So simply, if you have if X is given by some equation, then when you look at X evaluated, when you look at the CT rational point of X, this is a set of formal series such that for any I, when you evaluate its equation of X on xt, you have 0. So you look at the 0 set of these equations in that tree. That's all. So when you assume that H is proper and you have this isomorphism between these open sets, then you can conclude that H induces a bijection between this set of arcs. So I explain. So just I draw a picture. So here we are in AD, we have F equals 0 here, and we do a resolution of singularity. So we have Y and H, and I have my normal crossing divisor, which is like this. And I'm saying that if I take an arc which is here, then I can lift it like this. But also if I take an arc which is here, then I can lift it, and as you can observe, the origin will be on the normal crossing divisor, so it should be, for instance, here. So can be here. So I can lift it. And I don't care about the arcs inside of F equals 0 because it has 0 measure. As I explained this morning, it's not a problem. So why do we have that? So first of all, an arc it has a scheme. Point of view is given by a morphism of scheme from spec CT to AD. So simply because when I say this is nothing than that, and if you know algebraic geometry, then you know that a morphism of a affine scheme is given at the beginning by a morphism of ring, and here the corresponding morphism go in the other sense. So it's given like this. And to define this morphism, you need to define the image of each variable. So for x1, you have to map to some formal series, etc. And to xd, you have to map on some formal series. So when we say that an arc is an element of CT to power d, then you observe that and you understand this line. Okay. So from a scheme point of view, you have this. So this is a ring morphism. So I take an arc in my plane, so this is this line, and then I assume that my arc is not in the cusp. So I assume that the generic point of the arc is in AD minus F equals 0. So I have this, and here this is the injection. So if my arc is phi, and I have phi which is also here, okay, and this can be seen as the generic point of the arc phi, okay. And now I know that my H is an isomorphism between AD minus F equals 0 to y minus E. So I can say that this is isomorphic using H minus 1 to y minus E, which goes inside y. Okay? So if I fix phi, then by isomorphism, I have a unique point which is here, which will be the generic point of the lifting. Okay? And now I have a map from y to AD, which is H, and this map is proper. Okay, so I recall, here I have the generic point, usually it's called eta. I can lift it somewhere, but uniquely by h. Okay, and now I want to extend this generic point to an arc. Okay, and the evaluative properness criterion gives you the answer. So by there exists phi tilde which lift phi by the evaluative criterion of properness. So if we think in real topology, for instance, imagine that you have an arc phi from 0, 1 to RD, and you have a proper map H here. So phi should be continuous, of course. Okay, and by Heinz theorem, it's uniformly continuous. The image of phi is some compact set of RD. Imagine that here, so I have RE, for instance. I fixed a uniform and continuous map from 0, 1 to eta, and here I have the injection. Then by using the properness of H, I can extend uniquely eta to 0, 1. I can extend it uniquely. Okay. This is exactly what we are doing here from the algebraic point of view. Okay, so I don't say more, just we have this, this bijection. And now the idea will be to consider all the arcs downstairs and to lift it here, and to use the fact that on the resolution, as we have did this morning, the composition of F with H is locally monomial, and the Jacobian of H is also locally monomial. Okay, and then we can do the same computation as this morning. So okay. So using this remark, so maybe I should say follows from properness and Asimov. So from this Roman, we stratify the set of arcs using the trivial stratification of E, so as this morning. So E is a union of EI, yeah, where I is in A, and I recall that EI0 is intersection of EI minus the union of EJ. Okay, and I recall that the motivic measure of from Y point of view of the exceptional divisor is 0, and the motivic measure of from AD point of view of F equals 0 is 0. Okay? So we don't pay attention technically to arcs which are here. Okay, so we stratify. Okay, so this is the definition of the theta function, and then I stratify along the stratum, so sum for I included in A. So I recall that in the case where I is empty, this is nothing than y minus e. This is the definition. So I'm considering the measure of the arcs such that, so I know I have a lift, and I impose that the origin of the lift belongs to the stratum EI0, and I impose the order of Phi is equal to n, Tn. And I have a sum over n. Okay, so it's a way to rewrite the series, stratifying using the divisor. And then we will use a local coordinate. So for any point, so I take a stratum, and for any y, so for instance, that point, there is a neighborhood U of y in capital Y, and has this morning a regular sequence of regular functions here, so denoted by like this, where when you look at the reducible component of EI intersected with U is given by this equation yi equal to 0. And as this morning, we can complete this regular sequence to an étale map, which by smoothness of y can be completed in a coordinate system yi, and this will give us an étale map from U to AD. Like this, where so such that when you compose F with H, this is a unit times the monomial like this, and the Jacobian of h is a unit like this, where u and v are units, and has so by Noetherian argument or we can also say that an algebraic variety is a finite type, or over C. We can work on finitely many U. Okay, because I want to work locally. So this morning I had a compact set, as in the Merchandise of the ball. Here I use this kind of things. Okay, so I can do that for any y. Okay, for any y moving on the exceptional divisor, I have an open set U, and I have a system of coordinates, and I can rewrite my composition and my Jacobian like this. So using that, now I'm going to stratify again the set of arcs, taking care on the tangency of the arcs along the stratum. This is the main point. Okay, so we are studying the idea to study the tangency of the arcs along the stratum. So it's not difficult. So then, using that local coordinate as local coordinates, we stratify again the set of arcs toward the contact order of the lift along the strata EI0. So what is that? I write the FT as a sum for I in A, and I have again n positive, and now I have the multiplicity of the contact. Okay, and I look at the measure of these arc spaces T to the n. Where so this is the set of arcs such that, okay, the order of f on phi is 1, it's still the same condition, but now, as before, I assume that the origin of the arc lives in the stratum EI0, and I impose the contact order on the stratum. For any I in capital I ask to have the order of yi composed with phi equal to ki. I impose that. Okay. So this, in that way, I impose tangent contact, and necessarily has we have the formula there. How we have this, then necessarily when you plug the arcs here, you should have phi tilde. You should have this, and then you know that the order of f phi will be equal to the sum of ki and I, for I in capital I. So if I fix the order here equal to ki, then I know the order of my composition, it should be equal to the sum of ki and I. So I have an equation saying that n should be equal to this kind of thing. So I can rewrite my zeta function. So I have the sum for I included in A. I have a sum on these integers, and now I measure so I remove the assumption the n which is here. I don't care about that. I will remove that assumption. And here I have sum of ki and I. So here you start to see a geometric series which is coming. Okay, and at the end we will just do summation of a geometric series, as usual. So where xki is a set of arcs such that the origin of the lift is on the stratum ei0, and for any I order of yi phi tilde is equal to ki. Okay. So here you see the position is very good because we have fixed the order, this kind of order, and then as we will see, the order of f composed with h on such arcs is fixed, equal to the sum of ki and I, and this is the same also for the Jacobian. Okay, so we have some pieces where very interesting functions are constant. That was the point. So to measure this set, we use a change variable formula. So by the change variables formula. So Kontsevich gave the formula without any proof, and Denefloser and Batirev independently prove such a formula, and Denefloser did also the job for the case where x is not smooth, it's singular. Then by the change variable formula we have the measure of xki is equal to the measure of y ki ki, and you have L minus the sum of ki in y minus 1. So I explain you the change variable formula. When you integrate 1 over h, this is the measure of a. This is equal to the integral of h minus 1a of L minus order of the Jacobian of h. So tell me. Okay, and here I recall you that the Jacobian of h on my set U is the product of yi in ui minus 1, and this gives you this term. Okay, so we made a decomposition where all the functions are locally constant. So the Jacobian is constant, that's why you have just one term, and f composed with h is also constant. So then I can rewrite, and now we can work on y. Okay, so ZFT is now the sum of the motivic measure of yki Okay. And now to finish, we have to compute this motivic measure. Okay. And if you remember the proof of this morning, at the moment we use a B-analytic map to transform the open set U to some very nice set of AD. And then I said, yes, we can assume that the image is a ball because we can split into balls. So we have to do the same kind of strategy, okay? But we don't have a B-analyticity because we work in the algebraic world. But it's not a problem because we have an étal map. So by the infinitesimal lifting criterion for étal morphism, so here I have my étal map, and I recall you that this is y1 and 2yd, but yi equals 0 is an equation of this for any I here. And by smoothness, I can add more regular function to complete this local system, this regular sequence in a full coordinate system. So this gives me a function phi here, and we can ask for manifold. We can think that using this, I'm converting this situation to this situation locally. Okay, but this phi is not an isomorphism, just an étal map. But anyway, we can do what we want. As well. So by the infinitesimal lifting criterion for étal morphism, this map phi induces for any n larger than 1 an isomorphism between the jet space of arcs on U at level n to U times the jet space on the affine space over C, and this is a Cartesian product over phi. So meaning that if I take an arc phi modulo Tn plus 1. So I take my arc and I truncate at level n. Then I can apply this map where first I have the origin of the arc, phi tilde 0, and then I apply my function capital phi. So now this is an arc, a jet space, so modulo Tn plus 1, where here I have y1 phi tilde, yd phi tilde. Okay? So this is an isomorphism. And in fact, without using this kind of word, the proof of this is just using Ensel lemma, just an Ensel lemma. So here I have an arc. So imagine I am in some open set U, and here I have an arc. Then I can, by phi, obtain another arc, and as in general phi is not injective, okay, I can reconstruct phi because I have the origin of phi tilde in U. I have the origin here, so I don't lose the origin, but I can reconstruct like that. So this is an isomorphism, and then you can measure because it's easy to measure here. So this allows to measure yki. Why? Because phi tilde in yki is mapped on its origin, which lives in the component ei0. And then I have the other guy. And the other guy starts with so this is modulo Tn plus 1. So you have the first digit, which should be t power ki, because it's fixed. We have fixed, it's fixed here. Okay, so I have to start for I in capital I have to start with that, and this coefficient should be non-zero. Okay? I have to start with a term like this. And then I have the other term. Until Tn. So I know what I have to do, what I should have for coordinates with I in capital I, and for the rest, it should be 0 plus t plus etc. plus Tn, okay? Because I should respect this condition. I leave here, so maybe I should write here, because capital phi of phi tilde 0 should be equal to phi of phi tilde 0 in AD. So as I'm taking arcs where with origin here, you see I should have 0 coordinate after. So I have a bijection, an isomorphism between here what I want to measure, modulo Tn plus 1, and this. So if you remember the definition of the motivic measure, oops. By definition, last week, the motivic measure of yki is equal to the truncation of yki modulo 10 plus 1 times L power minus nd. This was the definition for n large enough. So in particular here I have some constraint. I have this, so I should ask to have n larger than the maximum of ki. So here for n larger than max of ki. Okay. So using this isomorphism, I can say that I have the first condition to have an origin here, so I will have the class of EI0, and then I have here non-zero coefficients living in I, so I have a class of the torus power cardinal of I, and then I have other coefficients, okay, and the number of them is, so here I have n minus ki coefficients, which are completely free. And I have this cardinal of I times. So we have a class of A1 power sum of n minus ki. And I have the rest of equation. So plus nd d n d minus I. So what we have is this is equal to the class of EI0, the class of the torus power I, L minus sum of ki days are equal, and then you have to multiply by this. So finally you have that plus or minus sum of ki nu I minus 1 t sum of ki ni. And this gives you the formula. So now you just have to sum some geometric series, and you have okay. So this is the idea of the proof of the rationality by Denef-Lozer. And you recognize exactly the same formula of Denef of this morning. Okay, up to specialization, you have exactly the same formula. So that's why we have a principle. So this formula specializes on the Denef formula. So in the case, I should say, in the case of when I start with a polynomial with integer coefficients, this formula specializes on the Denef formula for almost every p, as we have seen this morning. And the specialization is given by you transform L by P, T by P power minus S, and the class of ER0 is the cardinal of the reduction mod P of EI0. And in the work of Denef-Lozer, and later by Kluckers-Lozer, you have a generalization of this specialization principle. Okay. Okay. So you see the strategy of the proof is the same. We just use a good definition of properness to do the job and étalness. It's just the technical tools to do the proof. Comparing to the periodic case is just that. Okay, so now I have half an hour, and then I will explain the idea of Denef using logic to prove the rationalities. So I recall the notation. So we have this, and we have the other set considered by Serre and Osterle. Which is this. And then, as we have seen, we can rewrite that by the definition of the periodic measure. We have this, and so this is the periodic measure, and the other set, the other number, is up to a coefficient, the periodic measure of that set. So you look at all the periodic points such that there is y in the ball, Zpn, with Fy equal to 0 and y is equal to x modulo Pm. So that means that you impose the m first digit of y. And you see the difference between this case and this case is this quantifier here. So it's much more difficult because you have a quantifier. And the idea of DNF is to use a language where you have a quantifier elimination to go to something easier. This is the idea. So, and for that we use a McIntyre theorem. So more difficult because of so ID use the quantifier elimination theorem. So for that, the notion of definable sets in QP. So to use that, we have to define, we need to define two languages. The first language will be on QP, okay, which will be the McIntyre language, and we need also a language for Z, for the value group of the valuation, okay? So I start with Z. So for that, we use the Presburger language. So LPres is the first order language whose variables run over Z, and we have the symbols so this, and also you have symbols for congruence. Modulo D for any D larger than 2. And also you have the logic connectors like this. And in fact, Presburger proved Pressburger in 1930 states that Z has elimination of quantifiers in that language. Which means, so George explained that in his first course, that means that any formula can be is equivalent in Z to another formula without quantifiers. Okay, so for instance, if I fix P a prime number, P different to 2, then to say that there is x, y in n such that P is equal to x2 plus y2, and you know that this formula is equivalent to P is equal to 1 modulo 4. Okay, so this is an example of a quantifier elimination theorem, and this is a theorem of two squares. Okay, so this is what we put on Z, the target ring of the value. So also we can extend with infinity, but I have no time to go in technique. So now I explain what we put as language on QP. And then I put together the two languages. So let Mac for McIntyre. So again, the first order language whose variables run over QP and with the symbols. So again, so you remark that here I don't have the multiplication. This is the language for order group. So here I have the multiplication, and for any D, I have a predicate to say that an element X is a D power of an element of QP. So we have a symbol to denote the predicate X is a DS power in QP. And moreover, we add each element of ZP as constant. Then McIntyre proves that so in 76 states that QP has elimination of quantifier, has quantifier elimination in this language. Okay, and for instance, saying that there is alpha in ZP such that, so I fix P, I don't know, for instance here, there is alpha which is the roots of P and alpha is equal to alpha 0 mod P. Okay, this is equivalent to the condition P alpha 0 is equal to 0 mod P and the derivative P prime alpha 0 is not 0 mod P. And this is Hensel lemma. Okay, so if we put together the two languages, then we have a multi-sort language that we use for valued field. This is the idea of Denef and other people. So I consider this. Okay, I don't give detail, but you understand. And Denef in 84 proved that. Yes, and I have to add. I have to add the symbol of the valuation. So I add this symbol. So Denef proved that QP has a quantifier elimination in this language. Okay, and he says that his proof is a corollary of McIntyre's proof. And for us, which is very important, is the following theorem. So in 84, 86. Which is a cell decomposition theorem. Which says the following. So, if I consider a finite family of polynomial maps, okay, in two variables, x and t, and this x is in fact n minus 1 variable. So in fact, I'm fitting a QPN has QP n minus 1 times QP like this. Okay, so I'm isolating the last coordinate. Okay, as George explained for cell decomposition, is exactly the same. I'm isolating the last variable, for instance. Then, if I consider polynomials here, what is D? Anyway, then there exists a finite decomposition, finite partition of QPN into subset called cell of the form so A. So I'm looking to element of QPN like this, X and T. So X lives in some C, which is a definable set, and I have some condition like this. So I explain. So C is a L definable set. So meaning that this is a set defined by formula formed with that language. Okay, so it's definable, and it leaves this C is in QP n minus 1. So I have a definable set here. Okay, so I have the base of the cell C, and I'm looking to a set which is my A and lives in C times QP. And here I have the projection. So this is the base of the cell. Okay, and now I have condition on my last coordinate T, which is given by this. So this is a condition using periodic absolute values, and the symbols here are symbols of the form lower and equal, lower, or no condition. Okay. So for instance, if here I put 0 and here I put 0, then I'm saying that my T is a graph. This is a graph of a function C. So this small c is a definable function from C to QP. So if I decide to put 0, 0, and here in larger inequality, then I have T equal to Cx, so my T is a graph. My cell is just a graph. Okay? Okay, so we have the decomposition of the space like this, but for the moment we don't see nothing about these functions. Okay? And in fact, this cell decomposition is adapted to the set of functions here, because and furthermore, for any I in 1 M, Fi xt is a unit is a unique like this. So here you have unit. Here you have hi from qpn minus 1 to qp, a definable function. And here you have something which is monomial. Okay, so inductively, after you will start again on here, and you will consider a cell decomposition for all the hi, and you continue inductively until you have no variables. Okay. So the thing which is important is now we are working on something which lives in a space of dimension n minus 1. So this is the idea is to do inductively, and after to use a kind of Fubini theorem. Okay. So the theorem of Denef is to say that if I consider A lambda L, where lambda is in QPN, L in ZR, be an L definable family, and for instance, you can consider the NM set or NM tilde of the beginning, which is exactly this kind of L-definable family. Then he proves that the integral of 1 over this set, which is nothing than the measure, the periodic measure of A lambda L, is a function depending in the parameters lambda and L, which belongs to the Q algebra generated by what we want. So the function of the form QPN. The definable functions with integer values and the power of such definable function. So this is the rationality. Okay. At the end, we will have a result in terms of power of theta or theta. And then you can apply that for the first series. Okay, and in the last 5 minutes, I just give a remark. Okay, so the idea is to do a Fubini on this kind of function, and you see is more or less as you had a resolution of singularities. You have monomials times a unit, okay, and you do inductively. And I think the good thing is that the proof is very short, because when you look at the paper on resolution of singularities, Hironaka papers is 200 pages. Okay, to prove the resolution of singularities, and here it's shorter. Okay, it's another point of view, and this point of view, in fact, can also generalize the theorem. So this point of view gives generalizations. So first, if you take S L-definable subset of QPN, and you assume S to be contained in a compact set, assume you take a function f from QPM to QP, which is definable. And definable, and you assume that the absolute value of f is bounded on S. So this is important to be integrable. Then the periodic zeta function relatively to S is rational. So before we give a proof when S was this. But the point of view of Denef allows you to consider integration on all L-definable sets and give you the same result with the same proof. Okay. So this is so this is the first generalization, and the second generalization of Denef is the following. and I think it's very nice. If you take phi a formula in the language L and with 3 variables x1, xn. Then you can, similarly to the beginning, you can define nm phi as the set of elements in that ring such that the formula on X is true in that ring. Okay, so before we just add, before we ask to have this. It's an example of a first order formula in this language. But the idea of the NF is say we can consider any formula with 3 variables x1 and xn and consider this set depending on the formula phi. And also you can consider the lifting version. And before we ask to have f of phi x, f of x is equal to 0. It was the last, before we consider that. But here we just consider a formula phi and we ask to have phi of x is true in ZP. So you can consider this set of numbers. So this is of course the cardinal. Okay, and then by it follows from before that P phi So it follows from before that these data functions are rational. So this point of view, in fact, gives you, with one proof, the rationality of infinitely many data functions with parameters, a first-order formula in the language Ale with 3 variables fixed, x1, xn. Okay, and I stop.
The proof of the NF preserves rationality.
Of the NF?
Of the proof of rationality of the zeta function of the NF, that the NF and reserve prove.
So in motivic setting?
Yeah, so
okay.
Obviously it would acquire the resolution of singularities, so it would not be necessarily true in positive characteristics.
Yeah. That's the point.
Do you know any other cases if we replace QP or if we replace C by some other field? If it's true, I mean, it should hold for R in this setting also. And it holds for QP according to your...
No, just for... No? We need a resolution at the moment.
But for curves?
For curves, it's okay, yeah. But we have resolution in any field. For surface also, yeah. But after dimension 3.
Yeah, but for low degrees maybe.
For low degrees, it's okay. For curves and for surface, it's okay.
Yeah.
And also, so I will explain that on Friday. But for polynomials which are non-degenerates for the Newton polytopes, and you have also rationality without using resolution of singularity. But the proof, in some sense, use a toric desingularization. So we don't use Hironaka, but we are doing some resolution which is hidden behind the Newton polytope. So I will explain that on the second part of my talk on Friday.
Thank you.
I have just a technical
Hmm.
question. You mentioned the cell decomposition of QPM.
Mm.
Yes. Can you say more on the types of decompositions we have can obtain that?
So cell decomposition is it's a general notion.
And it's finite.
Yeah, it's finite. So it's a general notion. So Georges explained that in the semi-algebraic setting, but it's also true in O-minimal settings. And you have this in QP. And for instance, you have also this with another language at the motivic level. So here we have also some cell decomposition, some cell decomposition theorem, and this is always connected to a quantifier elimination theorem, always. So in that case, it's this Denef-Pass quantifier elimination theorem. For semi-algebraic, it's a Tarski elimination quantifier theorem, etc.
Do we have a metric information in these cells?
A metric?
Metric in some way?
It's you have an algorithm to compute it, and you have some data attached. So in the cell before, the data was the base of the cell, and the application C, which is usually called the center of the cell, and you have also the function a1x and a2x, which are definable. Okay. I think I forgotten to write this, but anyway. So this is the data of the cell, and that's all. And you know that you have always a finite partition. So for QP, the situation is nice because you can have this. For CT, the situation is different. You have to add maybe more parameters, and you have to leave CTN. So you just have a partition of some sets, and each set is isomorphic to a cell in some CTM times other parameters. So technically, you need to add element of the residue field and element of the value group, but it's not a big deal. Okay.
Other question?